Hello there, welcome back. Obviously, it's Fu Manchu, or the Fu Manchu Cycle to be exact. This is this wonderful box set from Indicator, which has all the really dodgy Fu Manchu movies from the 60s, and at your poster, you get a nice little booklet, and you get these all in, which matches up with the cover. Look, and you also get, and you get the disc, and you get other covers in here. So it's a nice little box set. I'm not going to go through every one. You can find unboxings of this, really, and I'm not really. It's not an unboxing or anything. This is just me showing you the box before I start talking about the film themselves. This is a film review thing. So I'm 199 of 6,000, or 1922 of 6,000. I can't even count properly today. So that's a Fu Manchu box set which I bought. Yes, I was one of those people who bought it. What can I say? Now, Fu Manchu is, well, it's a bit racist. It's the best way to put it. It's like a... it's one of those things that older folk may say, oh, they don't understand the context. But it was almost a bit racist. It was one of those things that's like, it got away with being so racist because it was in a culture that was a bit more racist when they were released and when they were written, when everyone was worried about the yellow menace, as they call it, which is China. And people are still worried about China. For different ways. It used to be people's China, now it's communist China. So obviously, expect another Fu Manchu movie coming soon. Hopefully not in yellowface. So yeah, the idea of Fu Manchu was written by an Irishman. It was total pulp. It was just basically, if you watch the box set stuff, you find out all the information about Saxon Woman and how he says he wasn't racist, and this wasn't a racist creation. It was just pulp. But some of the prose was kind of saying that Fu Manchu inherited all the evil of the East and all the knowledge of the East, and basically was saying he personifies the East. It was like, yeah, Chinese people would be a bit dodgy. They did think that a bit dodgy. That's like saying you're all evil, basically. And of course, they have a Englishman who's a bit racist too, fighting against Fu Manchu and always defeating him. I mean, I wonder if they're a bit concerned about things and they're a bit, like, insecure, because it's like, it's definitely a problem. It's a very problematic series. The yellow face in this film, where Christopher Lee done as Fu Manchu, does not help. Like, at all. But he's not the first person to do it. And in this time, Hammer was doing Yellowface as well with some of the prison, World War II prison movies set in the Pacific. So this was not new. I mean, Hammer had been doing this, like Camp in Blood Island and, you know, Yesterday's Enemy and things. They'd been doing it for a while. I'm not sure if Yesterday's Enemies actually had Yellowface, but I know Camp in Blood Island did. They had Michael Ripper and Yellowface. So it's not a good thing, but it was the norm then, because they didn't know any better. I mean, you can say, oh, they've been really racist. They just didn't know any better. They should have cast Japanese people or Chinese people or whatever. I mean, I think even anyone from Asia would have helped, even if it wasn't from China. But they never did it. And what's embarrassing now is there was already for 20 years before this film was made, there's been a lot of Japanese films coming out that were the Kurosawa films. Mifune was in Hell in the Pacific at this time when they were making these films. Mifune was crossing over. There was a lot of other actors who could cross over. You didn't even need to, you could have dubbed them, you know, but still the actor portraying it of the right proper race. I mean, a lot of these, this was a German and British production, so they would do dubbing it for different regions anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But no, they didn't do that. They actually just cast Chris Lee for star casting, which is absurd because he was fine as the hero fighting against Fu Manchu as well, quite easily. They could have cast him in that instead of the star casting and cast Fu Manchu properly. Because Fu Manchu, the makeup's not good. The makeup's dodgy as hell, and you have a Asian actress playing his daughter as well, which makes it look even worse. And sometimes you have Asians in the background, and sometimes you don't. Because his henchmen vary from different places. It depends who they could get the extras from. They couldn't get all Asian extras, so they had his henchmen came from everywhere, even though he was meant to be the Chinese menace. So it was like there was lots of problems. But yet they could have cast someone from Asia quite easily. I mean, this is one of those things. There's, if you know any of Asian films in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, there's tons of good actors. There's no excuse for acting, being that bad, or not acting being that bad, but the portrayal being that bad because you used yellowface. There were some terrific actors and terrific films that were coming over to Cannes. All the producers had a chance to see them. They could have picked. There's so many actors they could have picked for Fu Manchu, and had him as a big villain, and you wouldn't have had this charge of yellowface later. There was really no excuse because it was just a financial thing. Just we want a star and the lead is Fu Manchu. When Fu Manchu was a star, I mean, all you do is cast it properly, and it was a star anyway. It was just like this based a Bond villain, but as you know, in the 60s, they rather cast Europeans as these villains, and maybe if there's a Japanese actor playing something, it's a very minor villain, like Oddjob and Goldfinger or something. They never really had the faith of casting people, from Asia, which is funny because the Bond films always, a lot of the villains they cast and then redubbed them. Like the guy who played Goldfinger was a German actor and they redubbed his voice for the English language version. It was easy to do that time. It was the norm. No one cared. But they still used yellowface, and it's like, this is what ages it really bad. But also makes it wonderfully British because it's so British in all the worst ways. It's like all the tenured things that Britain did in the 60s, like the older generation never quite got that this was not a good idea. They just, it's the thing about capitalism, is capitalism doesn't care about feelings. Well, let's make my money, yes, let's do it. There's no moral perspective. It's all been worked. And that's what you get in this film. It's like, it'll do. And then you find that critically, he never asked the Asian actress playing his daughter what she thought of all this because he didn't really want to know because he knew it wasn't going to be good. And it's like, they all knew that something's wrong here. So that's the thing that taints these films, and there's no real excuse for it. There were great actors from Asia that they could have brought in for Fu Manchu. It was just so easy. Plus, they had so many German actors coming over to play supporting parts because of German-British co-production. They have to redub anyway. So it's like, well, you're redubbing. It's like, you're ready to do it for different regions. So, what was the big deal? They wanted Christopher Lee. But Christopher Lee could have played Nayland Smith, who was the hero, quite easily. He did that stuff before. He was going to do it pretty soon in The Devil Rides Out. He can't play the hero. He's better as a villain, but he can't play the hero. So, that's that. Now to the films. Once we've got beyond all that, let's go to the films. The films are terrifically good fun for the first two. And the third one's enjoyable too, but it's got it's way too long for the plot. And the fourth and fifth ones are bloody awful. It's amazing how a series can start so high and then go so low so quickly over a few years, because the first film was 65 and the final film was made for release in 69. So it was one a year, and each film went down, down, and down, down, down. And but it took a while to get down, and then it fell off the cliff. And then on the fourth one, it was like the first three are very enjoyable. They're very 60s, full of the kind of same 60s repression and manners and weird, subtle post-colonial confidence that the Hammer films have, where, yeah, Britain's lost the empire, but they still haven't admitted themselves, and they still do films about the empire when they had more power, and the actors were still a bit confident, and they had that kind of swagger to them. They weren't going to admit the failures until the 70s. So you had that going for it, and it was a nice adventure film, but it was, and they put some money into it, and there was a German European production, so you had a lot of German actors in support, but it's still a very enjoyable film. John Sharp directed it. He did some of the better Hammer films. He did Rasputin the Mad Monk and Kiss the Vampire, two of my favourite Hammer films. He didn't like Hammer because it was stingy, so he didn't really work from that often. He jumped around different producers, and he made some really interesting films. Including, I mean, he did Psycho Mania in the 70s, which has a really good reputation. He would go and do stuff. He would, eventually his career collapsed in the 70s when everyone else's career collapsed, when the British industry collapsed. But he was making some interesting films still then. And The Face of Fu Manchu is one of them. Face of Fu Manchu is really enjoyable. It's top class pulp because it has a momentum to it. It's like, this is the one where you don't stop to think about all the dodginess is going on because it moves so fast and the plot's so interesting that the momentum keeps going. So you get Nayland Smith, who sees Fu Manchu. So Nayland Smith played by Nigel Green, who's terrific in the film. He's like the best version of the... He only played this part once, but he was the best version of that character. So he could do the action, he could do the talk. You felt he was a good hero against Christopher Lee's villain. He was a guy who could take care of himself, and he wasn't intimidated by Fu Manchu. Christopher Lee's Fu Manchu is good. It's just that nowadays the yellow face really doesn't help, and the makeup's so on him that he cannot emote much, so he had to use his voice a lot. Because Christopher Lee's got a good voice, it doesn't matter, but he's kind of limited. He can't move much. It looks like his costume's holding him back most of the time. So he plays a character, someone who doesn't move much, doesn't say much, but what he says counts. And that works in the first film because what he's saying actually makes sense. And what he's doing is quite evil, and there's some really wonderful build to evil actions. I mean, Fu Manchu in this one isn't messing around. Basically, he's kidnapping a scientist to basically get this... Basically, to get someone that can poison lots of people. And he can finish off the job, basically. So he's kidnapped the guy's daughter as well to threaten him. And when he gets this stuff, he destroys the entire English village. Just kills them all with this mist, this fog of death. And it's a really creepy scene with all these dead bodies all over the place. It's really wonderfully done. And there is a kick to this film where the villains really mean it. They don't care. They're going to kill everyone who gets in the way. Even when their henchman disobeys them, they will die horribly. Everything, they all mean it in this film. Everything's brutal, everything's to the point. And yet I feel saying that Fu Manchu is a total psycho who has to be stopped. You know, you don't have a chance to look into his plan, because his plan doesn't quite make sense when you think about it. But it works for the 90 minutes you're watching the film. It really feels, it just goes really fast. It's really enjoyable. It's the epitome of a really fun 60s adventure movie. It really works for what it is. And it works better than it ever should work, because this story is absurd, but the direction really delivers. Plus the script knows what it's doing. Apparently there's quite a few writers in this film, in this script, because the writing credit is a pseudonym for Harry Alan Towers, who's a producer. But the script to this one was much better than the rest of the films. So the director thought that he'd brought someone else in to polish it to actually make it work a lot better. Because it is a much better script than what came later. So, Face of Fu Manchu is wonderful. I'd highly recommend it. It's worth seeing. So even if you don't want to buy this set, wait till it comes to do the normal edition and get this one, because it is really worth it. Okay, now we have Brides of Fu Manchu. This is another Don Sharp movie. This is another film he made in the series before he moved on. And it has a worse script. The script's not as good, but it's still really well directed. It's still really enjoyable. So you're having a lot of fun watching it. So even though you know it's not quite as good as the first one, the actors are still enjoyable, the situations are still enjoyable, the threat's still there. So even if certain things aren't as set up as well, it still really works. In this one, the scientists, there's more than one scientist. Fu Manchu is building this thing, this audio threat, where he needs different scientists to do different parts of it. So he kidnaps the daughters of 8 or 9 scientists and keeps them captive in a secret underground layer. and they all have to follow his instructions, and they have to give up their companies and everything to keep their daughters alive. And again, the threat of Fu Manchu is evil. He will kill anybody. He will threaten anybody. He doesn't care. His daughter's a sadist who enjoys killing people. You start the film with Fu Manchu hypnotising a young woman who's the daughter of one of the scientists, makes her kill somebody when they're daughters of a scientist who's outlived his usefulness. It's a brutal scene. It's really, really dark. And it sets you up as this guy means business and you should be intimidated anytime he's on screen. So it really works because Don Sharp knows what he's doing with this. Then it becomes a bit more fragmented. Like there's too many plots in this one, too many characters all over the place. There's a guy who is in love with the woman they're trying to kidnap, who's the daughter of one of the more important scientists. There's Nayland Smith again. This time he's played by Douglas Wilmer, who used to play Sherlock Holmes. He's not as good as Nigel Green, but he is good. He is enjoyable. He is playing a guy who is a hero. So he does it well, but he doesn't have the same kind of gravitas that Nigel Green had. And Nigel Green could do the action a lot better than this guy could. So it is a slight problem. Because the first one had a lot of action towards the end that you really feel confident because Nigel Green was doing it, that he knew what he was doing. This one with Wilmer, it's not quite as good. But he is good at playing a guy who's intellectually up to speed. More of the organiser. So plus and minuses, but still enjoyable performance. Like he still managed to make this character work in the drama. And he's trying to work out what's going on, the kidnapping, things don't make sense, and he's kind of pretty sure Fu Manchu's still alive. Because Fu Manchu always seems to die in these movies, then comes back. And the man's always out for revenge on Nayland Smith because of all the ways he's ruined his plans as in the before. But in this one, he's out to kill lots of people to get money and stuff. Fu Manchu's still an evil git who's just horrible to people. You get to see the brides of Fu Manchu, the daughters of the scientists, try to plot one in captivity to try and escape. You've got Nayland Smith try to work out where Fu Manchu is so he can go to the source and fight him. And they try to work out how he's working the plan out. They're slowly getting bits pieced together again and again. And it all works really well, even though it's a bit long for its plot. The direction is so confident. The acting is still enjoyable for this kind of movie. There's lots of set pieces that are enjoyable to watch. I mean, one of the good things with the first two films is the way Don Sharp shoots fights. He shoots them as brutal fist fights. You know, it's nothing stylized. It's all kind of ugly and for the time ugly. But it still feels like you've got stuntmen fighting each other in brutal ways, which makes it really enjoyable. And the whole thing just goes on a nice clip. It really works for what it is. It's the kind of sequel's not quite as good as the first one, but still was pretty enjoyable. It's that feel to it, and the first two films are very influenced by the Fritz Lang films of the 20s, those kind of melodramas that were spy movies that went quite a clip. They're very influenced by that. They're rip-offs of that, but they still work as that. There's nice little rip-offs of that kind of style, that pulp style. They really deliver. So that's another one that's very enjoyable. It's very much worth having in your collection. I had a great time with it. There's not much more to say about it, it's just enjoyable. I mean, there's nothing there. The production design sometimes is a bit cheap. I noticed a crane in the background at one point, so that crane looks too modern for... Because it's set in the 1920s, it's like, that crane's too modern. There's a lot of bits like that. Sometimes you can see the drawings, because I've shot in the 60s, it might take place in the 20s, and it just doesn't look right. Because they're working with a low budget, because Hallie Ann Towers, the producer, was known as a cheapo. He would have tons of films going at the same time, and the budgets would be scraped quite a bit from one film to the other, so he had that problem, but the first two films still managed to make good use of the situation, still be fun to watch. Now we have Vengeance of Fu Manchu. This is the last of the good ones, and it's even this one's kind of slight. This is when the series went into this idea of Fu Manchu's so focused revenge on Nayland Smith that the plots are there to get revenge on this guy more than anything else. This one still has some nice moments, but it's just the plot's not as good as what came before. It's made by Johnny Man director, who does a decent job. Jeremy Silmer or something like that. He's such an unknown director that I've forgotten his name a few days after I watched the film. Um, it's it's fine. The idea is he's going to frame Neil and Smith for murder by he creates this thing where he kidnaps another scientist. Again, he loves kidnapping scientists who do plastic surgery on this guy. It makes a Chinese guy look like a British guy, which is really dodgy. It's like there would be signs. The amount of time you'd have to do to change an Asian face to a British face, then an Asian body to a British body is impossible. It might be done in 2 days. It's utterly absurd. So you have to kind of go with that one. But it means you're in the land of high fantasy instantly. But the plan is he kidnaps Neil and Smith. He replaces him with this other guy who kills the housemaid brutally and gets arrested and will not defend himself. So this guy is going to actually be killed. So the world thinks Neil Smith's a murderer and he's dead. Well, Neil Smith's taken to China while Fu Manchu is actually bringing together the world, all these gangsters around the world to actually go under his control so they can rule the world through gangsterism and through building this up. And he has to prove himself to them to be worthy as a leader by killing his arch enemy. Which he fails at, obviously. And it turns out the guy they send as representative to the gangsters is a bit of a sadist. And it's fine. It's enjoyable pulp. I mean, the gangster they have over is kind of a nasty piece of work, but he's enjoyable to watch. He's got a girlfriend who leaves him. She realises how nasty he is, but she's a useless actress, so it doesn't matter. Douglas Wilmer's Neil Smith again. He gets a lot more to do in this one not by the screen time, just having more to do by playing his evil twin and being kidnapped and stuff. He has more interesting things to do, but it's probably less screen time. First of all, he's in it a lot. He has more screen time than the last film, but he's a lot less to do because he's just not doing anything at all. Like I can't remember one thing he did in this film. He's in the film a lot, but he doesn't do much. And it's just one of those films that's kind of very vague. And there's a lot of supporting actors who are in. It makes you feel like Wilmer and Christopher Lee were both shooting in and out of the film. Like they probably shot their parts pretty quickly for this one because they're not in it physically that much. They feel that they shot their stuff in one block, in one area, and didn't take that long. It's just a very fragmented film with not much momentum going for it, but it's still enjoyable. It's still pulp. The actors are still doing a good job with their cliched roles, but it's kind of it's the most anonymous of the films. It's not the worst of the films. It's just the most anonymous of the films. You said a film that could have done another rewrite, take a few characters out, give other characters more to do. It needed a bit more focus. But it's still enjoyably done, so I can't complain that much. Okay, now we go to Drake. This is the worst. Well, we're not going to do the worst stuff now. This isn't about the worst of the films, though. This Blood of Fu Manchu is the first of the two Jess Franco movies in the series, and Jess Franco ruined the series, basically. Him and Harry Alan Towers. I mean, Towers cut the budget down because they were making less money now because people were sick of the conventions. They'd seen the film now, basically. In the last film they made, Vengeance of Fu Manchu, wasn't that good. So it was like people had enough, really. So they decided to keep the film series going, but cut the budget down quite a bit and use more stock footage and bring Christopher Lee back in for short time in the studio. Like, these two films were made back to back, apparently. Like, they shot one, then they shot the next one, pretty much, to release 1 year after another, but they both look really cheesy and are very low budget. Jess Franco shot a lot of film in low budget, and they all kind of tend to look cheesy and low budget. And this one is very influenced by Sergio Leone, because it spends a good half of the movie on this bandit who's like the local gangster kind of guy who goes and attacks villages and shoots someone. He acts very much like a Sergio Leone film, and he's causing trouble for Fu Manchu. Meanwhile, the Neil Smith, now played by Richard Green, who's in it for like 10 minutes and who is blind for most of that because he was kissed by a woman who's made of poison. They poison all these women who are, again, like the brides of Fu Manchu, are slaves and who have been brainwashed, and they kidnap the women and they brainwash them and send them out to kiss all these men and make them ill or die. And Neil Smith gets injured, but his injury gives him clues to where the stuff came from, so they have to go, even though he's blind. So Richard Green spends most of his time in the back of our truck, being blind. As his sidekick who sent there earlier does all the hero stuff and does all the shootouts. And Christopher Lee turns up once in a while. And there's lots of nudity this time round. Before, everyone was very chaste, and now just Franco's involved. You've got lots of breasts in the background in certain scenes for no apparent reason. You've got lots of rapes and stuff from villagers, and it's just so seedy. You feel you need to go for a bath after you've seen it. It's like gratuitous in almost every way. It looks really dirty and seedy. The characters are all awful. The plot is ridiculous because he's doing this to get revenge on Neil Smith again, right? And kill all his enemies beyond Neil Smith around the world. And he's got this thing, and he's just using it for revenge on people who have slighted him. But at this point, Fu Manchu is really stupid. I mean, these last two films, Fu Manchu is a moron. He does things that make no sense, and I'm pretty sure Christopher Lee was wondering, what the hell am I saying during most of these films? These are like, he's got idiot lines to say all the time. He's not saying anything that's intelligent, and you kind of feel he knows it. Like, you kind of feel he knows he's in a total piece of crap. So he just does his best and gets out. Picks up the check and gets out. And Richard Green looks like he's one-eyeing the check every time he does a scene. It's like, is a check cleared? Yeah, I'll do the scene. He gives that kind of performance. He's the worst Neil Smith. He gives nothing to the part in either of the films he's in. But he knows he's in a film that is not working. So he tries to be professional, but that's all he can do because he's not given anything to do either. I mean, he's really pretty much given nothing to do because they don't really have faith in the characters anymore. The characters are like stand-ins for plot points, really. Like, you do this, you do that. So the fragmentation of the film from the third one, The Vengeance, continues. The fourth one gets worse. It gets more absurd and more silly. And it just is a mess. It's a total mess. There's lots of scenes that drag on. People are given missions to do, and then they're killed without doing the missions. And you wonder, what was the point of any of this? And there's lots of scenes where people go and do things that never pay off. And the lead actress in the third one, who was a useless girlfriend, is now in the fourth one playing a useless girlfriend. And according to the to the extras in the box set, she was not a very nice person. She was a girlfriend of Towers, and apparently no one liked her much. Very much a diva. That's what they say anyway in the extras. So, Blood of Fu Manchu is bloody awful. It's just terrible. It would have easily been the worst of the series if it hadn't been a fifth one. Now we come to the fifth one. You know, the Castle of Fu Manchu. This is the worst one by a mile. This one, I'd struggled getting through this one. To be honest, I really had a problem getting through this one. This was terrible. This was terrible in every possible way. There was just nothing here that actually worked for me. I just was so bored watching most of this, so I don't have much to say. They start off with Fu Manchu attacking a ship that's actually footage of Night to Remember, which is sinking Titanic. So, according to this, Fu Manchu sank the Titanic. He has this thing now that can create turn water into ice because of some weird thing he's got, like some weird strain he's got that seems to be tied to drugs in Istanbul. So it's set in Istanbul this time around South America. It's the same druggy feel to it, the same meandering plot that has lots of characters doing things, half of which don't make sense. Like Fu Manchu engages gangsters to help him take over this castle to do for his plot. Then he tries to kill them all. So he creates enemies for himself rather than just paying them off. So half the film is them trying to get revenge on Fu Manchu for the fact he's cheap. Really. And there's lots of scenes of Fu Manchu saying things that don't make any sense. Again, Christopher Lee is like looking as if he would rather be anywhere but here. He just looks like he does not like where he is. Richard Green turns up again as Dylan Smith. He has nothing to do. They kidnap another scientist who has to replace the heart of a scientist who's built this thing. So Fu Manchu has to kidnap a scientist to help a scientist who's already kidnapped to get access to this technology that he doesn't quite have access to quite yet, because the guy who's dying has perfected it, but he's already announced to the world he has it by doing this terrorist act. So he's an idiot at this point. He's like, why not perfect the thing first and then announce to the world? He's a moron in this film. Richard Green does more to do, but he still looks like he wants to check quick. All the actors for that film, they all just look as if they're like, what am I doing here? I don't know what's going on here. What's the scene? That scene doesn't make sense. Just do it anyway. It's bloody awful. There's also some stock footage from Campbell's Kingdom where a dam breaking that Fu Manchu does. So you see footage of him in, I guess, Istanbul there or Spain. He's standing looking down at a dam that's breaking. And the dam's from another film that looks a lot better shot than the film we're watching. So there's a disconnect there. So they're using stock footage from other films, all of which were shot better than this one. It just does not work at all. It's an embarrassment. At the end of this film, apparently the producer said to James Franco, you've actually managed to kill Fu Manchu. And yeah, because no one can watch this film. This film was shot and it wasn't released until 4 years later in most countries because everyone knew how bad it was. So that was the end of the series. It started up so well, and 4 years later it was unwatchable. That's Fu Manchu. And it still had that dodgy stuff with Christopher Lee and the yellowface. So I hope you enjoyed this video about Fu Manchu, the various delights of Fu Manchu. The box set is still worth it because there's lots of good extras. The first 3 films are very enjoyable. And the final 2 are such disasters that they're a great train wreck to watch and think, why? So go watch them anyway because they are worth it. I mean, if you actually get this, if you're not that keen, wait for a sale from Indicator. They use a sale every so often. If you wait for a sale, you can get it at a decent price. If you're keen for my review, you can get it now at like £50. So it's still £10 a film plus good extras on Blu-ray, so it's still a pretty good deal. So I'll be back soon with another video. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you soon.